Hi. Thank you for attending today's reading. Let's begin. My cat faked his own death and survived a week in NYC alone, so it sounds crazy. But hear me out. My 7-year cat companion Dragon is an indoor cat through and through. I just moved to NYC a few weeks ago. But the last thing I expected from him happened. He got outside overnight exactly a week ago, and as my partner and I were searching for him the following morning, we discovered a recently ran over cat just 1 block down from my apartment. Brown fur like Dragon. Even white tufts in the same places. We'd been searching for hours and found nothing but this cat, so we assumed it was him. 1 cat funeral and a week of pure sadness later. I'm just looking out my window when I see a brown cat dash from a nearby car to a garden next door. I lose my shit, thinking either this is a raccoon and I'm about to look real dumb calling out, "Dragon," at a raccoon. At 1 a.m. or, just maybe, my cat companion is about to come home. Thank God it was the latter. IDK, whose cat I held a funeral for. Like a full-ass funeral. Mind you. But oh my gosh, I have never been more thankful to see a living creature in my life. And of all cats to just explore NYC alone for a week. I would have never guessed it'd be Dragon. But I am just so happy. TLDR. My cat found a body double and faked his own death only to show up exactly a week later at 1 a.m. End of story. Next story. COVID-19 cancelled my high school graduation party. 10 comments share save hide report 96% upvoted. End of story. Next story. My grandmother recently died. Clearing out her garage. We found this story handwritten on faded paper. This story was written by her when she was of college age. Early 1950s. 3 comments. Share, save, hide, report. 97% upvoted. End of story. Next story. Is she crazy? So my brother got a girl pregnant back in February 2021. We knew about it and we met the girl. She was pretty cool. Over the months, my brother would tell me that the pregnancy is making her clingy and emotional. And that he doesn't really like being around her. He'd always come straight home after work and even stay home on his off days. I would ask why he isn't with this girl or why hasn't he checked in on her, and he just says that she's fine. Mind you, my brother is a huge dick and a narcissist. He also has sex with a lot of different women but never commits. He's had 1 girlfriend years ago, but I still don't know why they broke up. Anyway, we haven't seen the girl for a while and my brother pretty much ignores her. I tell him that pregnant women need lots of attention and care, so he should be checking in on her. Of course, he doesn't listen. The baby was due in October, but we haven't heard from the girl in months. Tell me why she texted my brother saying to come over to see the baby, and it turns out the baby was just born. He showed us some pictures of a baby that was not more than a week old. Doesn't add up, right? She told him she carried the baby to 38 weeks, meaning she wouldn't have gotten pregnant until maybe May or something. My brother revealed that he was still having sex with her, unprotected, because she was already pregnant. I can't make her more pregnant. She eventually told him that she miscarried a little after she got pregnant the first time and then managed to get pregnant again while they were still having sex. She never told him about the miscarriage because he was always ignoring her and leaving right after sex, so she never got the chance to. As someone who has also miscarried, I can understand holding in that pain. Not to mention, my brother isn't the most responsive and he's let her know that he hates being around her. I'm not excusing her actions, but how would you say something important like that to someone who hates your guts and acts like you're a nuisance. After he came back and told us this, he said he feels like she got pregnant on purpose to trap him. But if he kept having unprotected sex with her, was it on purpose? Honestly, I see blame in both of them. Him for playing around with her and manipulating her feelings, and her for not telling him about her miscarriage. IDK. What do you guys think? End of story. Next story. I cried when my pants came off in front of a girl I remember when I was 8 to 9 in primary school. There was a friend of mine who loved to pull down people's pants. Boys' pants OFC. At school. It was something that a lot of kids at the time did. One day, he decided to pull my sports pants down, revealing my undies. And of course, the girl was there to witness it. I ended up crying in front of her. But to my surprise, she felt sorry for me and bought me a paddle pop. End of story. Next story. Please don't leave your kids alone at the hotel pool. We arrived at the Yosemite Inn & Suites on July 1 at 4 p.m. and I was exhausted from driving 300 miles from the Mojave Desert. My 11 and 12-year-old daughters wanted nothing more than to jump in the pool, where my wife and I wanted to just lay down in the room. In the past, as long as the neighborhood seemed okay and there were no seedy characters in the pool, then we would just let the girls go alone in the pool. So my wife, Gina, and my daughters, Grace and Samantha, and I went to the pool that appeared to have no one that would cause the girls any harm. There was just a couple that looked to be in their early 70s. The older guy didn't even look at the girls when we walked into the pool area or even when the girls stepped into the pool. So I felt pretty safe that he wasn't a creep. We exchanged a few niceties with the couple where they told us they were from Boston, and we both commented about the dry heat that was in the 100s that didn't seem that bad without any humidity. I told the girls we were in room 105 and the older couple said they were in room 205, which had a nicer view of the wilderness, which I agreed since our room overlooked the parking lot. Gina and I went to the hotel room and about a half hour later the girls came to the room. Hopefully they put enough sunscreen on because I didn't want to hear them complaining about a sunburn tomorrow. Fortunately, there were no sunburns, and in the morning we had our free continental breakfast. The hotel staff were courteous and gave us a few tips about Yosemite Park. We drove an hour to Yosemite and the hike to see the Yosemite Falls was breathtaking. After Yosemite, we drove to San Francisco where we were all too tired from the hike, so we went to the hotel and got takeout dinner and went to bed. We stayed in San Francisco for a few days, where we went to Alcatraz and a few other popular sites. A few days later we headed to the airport and got to Philadelphia 6 hours later. We were all too happy to be home, and Gina posted her photos of the trip on Facebook. Life back at our Philadelphia suburb went back to normal, where the girls had to stay home for a week until day camp started, while Gina and I worked. The first day back we didn't want to cook, so we got takeout, and the next day we were happy to have our own cooked pasta after eating out for so long. Ted, where's the big cooking pot? Gina asked me. It must be in the bottom cupboard with the rest of the pots and pans. No. I looked and it's not there. Quote, I remember we used that big pot before we left for our trip, where I hand washed it and put it back. So it would be impossible if it wasn't there. Quote, well, it's not. Look. Quote, after moving around the various pots and pans, I say, that's really odd. We had that pot for the past 15 years. Ever since we got married. My parents got it for us as a wedding gift. What do you think happened to it? Quote, "I don't know, but let me go ask the girls if they know anything. They're both in the living room watching TV," I said. "Girls, have you seen that big pot that we cook with sometimes?" Quote, "No, I haven't," Samantha said. "No. Sorry, Dad. I haven't seen it either," Grace said. I walked back into the kitchen and I told Gina, where we both scratched our heads in confusion. "Do you think we should call the police?" Gina asked. "I don't know. They'll probably laugh at us for calling them for something that has about a 50-cent depreciated value." Quote, "It's not the cost of the pot that I care about. It's the fact that someone must have come into our house and took it." Quote, When we were in the West Coast." Quote, "Is there anything else missing?" I ask. "Nothing obvious. All the TVs are still here and obviously the furniture." Quote, "Though I clearly remember returning the pot to the cupboard after washing and drying it. You never know, maybe I inadvertently did something with it." Quote, "Like what?" Quote, "I don't know. Threw it away in the garbage or something else." "Well, don't you remember when we came through the door when we got home from the airport and I said that we should have taken the small amount of garbage out because the house smelled?" Quote, "Yeah. I know it would be in the garbage can in the kitchen if I had thrown it out. I'm just giving suggestions." Quote, "Gina looks like she is at her wit's end, where she is either about to cry or start to yell. Let's just forget about it and use the 2 smaller pots," I suggest. So that's what we did, and we cooked and ate the pasta. Gina and I did the dishes and we retired for the night. The girls played on their phones for a little bit and we all went to bed. "Where's the remote?" I asked Gina. "Did you look under your pillows?" Quote, "Yes. I searched the whole bed." Quote, "Well, it's not on the dresser or on our nightstands. What about under the bed?" Quote, "Okay. Let me look." Quote, "After looking around under the bed I didn't see the remote." "No. I don't see it." Quote, "Ted. I'm calling the police." Quote, "Because we're missing a remote?" Quote, "Yes." Quote, "They'll either laugh at us or arrest us." Quote, "Ted. The pot is missing and now the remote." Quote, "I know. But that's not something that someone would steal." Quote, "Somebody was in our house. That's why I'm calling the police." Quote, "Based on?" Quote, "The pot missing and now the remote." Quote, Gina, "People have been joking about missing remotes ever since the remotes were invented." Yes. "The missing pot is strange, but the remote will reappear eventually." Quote, Ted, "The remote isn't in this room. Look around. There's no place for it to hide." Quote, "Well, maybe one of the kids took it and they're sleeping now. So I don't want to ask them." Quote, Ted, "Their TV is different than ours. Our remote won't work on their TV and they know that." Quote, "I know, Gina. But maybe they took it anyways thinking that it would work." Quote, "Okay. Whatever. Then let's just go to sleep." Quote, "We went to sleep and Gina and I went to work as normal. The kids aren't going to camp this week and are staying home. So we gave them a list of chores to do. That maybe they'll do but maybe not. When we got home from work, both Gina and I were surprised that the girls did the laundry. However, we were a little disappointed that they didn't fold the clothes. We didn't say anything to them for we didn't think it was such a big deal." Grace, our oldest daughter, asked me to enter the password on her phone because of the parental controls on her iPhone so she could download an app to play a game. I agreed for her to download the app, so I took her phone and I inadvertently hit the phone icon on her cell phone. I noticed that Grace had a phone call from Delaware where the phone call lasted 63 minutes at 11 o'clock a.m. Hey Grace. Who are you talking to from Delaware? Quote, oh, that was just your friend Diane. I don't have a friend named Diane. Quote, don't you remember Diane? Your friend that you ran into at the pool at that Yosemite hotel? Quote, no, I don't. Quote, the older man Jack and his wife Diane. Who you were talking with before you and Mom went back to the room. Quote, you mean that old couple that I briefly spoke with that said they were from Boston? Quote, yeah. Aren't you friends with them? Quote, no. I never seen him before in my life. Quote, well, Diane said she stayed in our house for a few days. Quote, what? Quote, yeah. She said that you made arrangements with them so they could stay here while we were in California. Quote, no. I said no such thing. I have no idea who those people are. Quote, well, they stopped by while you were at work to get some of their remaining things. Quote, what the hell is going on? You let them in this house? Why would you do that and why wouldn't you tell us? Quote, Dad, they were talking to me and Samantha like you were old friends and they told us at the pool that they would probably see us when we got back home. Quote, oh my God. This is horrifying. Did you give them our phone number and address at Yosemite? How did they get your cell phone number? Quote, no. Me and Samantha didn't tell them anything. We would have told you if they were asking for our address or our phone number. Quote, well, how did they find out where we live and how did they get your phone number? Quote, well, Diane called our home phone and the reception was bad, so I gave her my cell phone number. Quote, Gina, come here. Quote, what? Quote, I'm just finding out that the old couple who I barely said more than hi to at the pool when we were at that Yosemite hotel were actually in our house with the girls earlier today and probably stayed here while we were in California. Quote, what? Quote, I know it sounds crazy. But somehow they got our address and possibly our phone number. But they may have gotten our phone number once they were in the house. I said to Gina, this is a joke, right? Quote, no. I know this is the craziest thing I ever heard. I wonder why they stayed here and what if anything they took from us. Quote, I'm calling the police. Quote, I called the police and they were reluctant to come over at first, but once I said those strangers were in our house when we weren't home, then they agreed that what they did was considered breaking and entering and sent a detective Murphy to our house to get our information. Before the detective came to our house, I called the Yosemite Inn and Suites to try to get more information. Hello. Yosemite Inn and Suites. Yes. I stayed there on July 1st at your hotel and something really strange happened. Where I briefly met an older couple in your pool area and they somehow stayed at our house uninvited while we were still in California. Quote, wow. Sir, that does sound really strange. How do you know that it was them who stayed at your house? Quote, they actually came over when our daughters were home alone. I remember that they said they were staying in room 205. Which was easy to remember because we stayed in room 105. Quote, well, I can tell you that we don't have a room 205. Quote, seriously? Well, how did they get into the pool area? Quote, sir, sometimes the door to the pool doesn't close all the way, or sometimes people inadvertently let non-guests into the pool area. Okay, whatever. Well, how did they get our address? Quote, I have no idea, sir. Did you tell them your room number? Quote, I told my daughters and maybe they overheard our room number. Quote, did one of your daughters tell them your last name? Quote, I didn't ask them that. Why would that have made a difference? Quote, I'm just guessing. But if your daughters didn't tell them your address, then perhaps that older couple came up to the lobby desk and pretended to be you and somehow got your address. Quote, wouldn't they have to show proof of identification before the hotel clerk would give any information out? Quote, well, sir, I would say yes. But perhaps the couple said the right thing to avoid showing identification. But I'll put an incident report in to try to get more information. Quote, okay. Do you think you'll be able to find out if an employee gave away our information? Quote, probably not. Because even if an employee didn't follow the right protocol by not asking for identification, that same employee probably won't admit that they did that. Quote, do you have security cameras in the lobby? Quote, we do, but we only keep the recordings for 3 days. Okay. Great, thank you. Quote, I hung up the phone frustrated. Then Detective Murphy came over and I told him everything that I knew. Besides the pot and remote missing, Gina also noted a few of our personal photographs missing, which we were equally as dumbstruck by as our remote and pot missing. I followed the detective's advice and cancelled all of our credit cards and I monitored my retirement and other investment accounts to make sure no unauthorized transfers would occur. The girls could only give a vague description of what they looked like for the police sketch artist. So, Diane and Jack looked like every other gray-haired couple. Detective Murphy said he would contact us if he heard anything additional. Diane's call from New Jersey came from a burner phone, which wasn't any help to the detective. The detective isn't sure how they got into our house, but I may have left the basement door unlocked. We heard nothing new after a couple of weeks. But I noticed something really disturbing while we were eating dinner tonight. As I looked up into the chandelier above the dining room table, I saw a small hidden camera. End of story. That is all for today. If you want to support my automated channel, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. See you tomorrow.